start. Um, Also, when I was telling to my friends that I'm going to be giving this talk, they asked me, "Hey, did you do any slides, any presentation?" I was like, "No, it's the conversation that we have here, and there's not much to put on the slides." And they said that, "Well, then that's like a stand-up show on the Zoom." And I'm like, "Yeah, that it's pretty much the case, but we want to make it productive and say, yeah, you can do it. You can do it productively only in the way if you become kind of Ted Lasso mode in the show. So I'm not going to be Ted Lasso, but that was a really good idea. And I'm going to tell a little bit about myself from the perspective on the engineering, so that you would understand better how things unfolded. As I said, I started working 2004. Then there was a lot of freelance projects after that. After I pinned a couple companies that wanted to, take me on full-time contractor opportunities, and that allowed me to both go wide and deep in the things that I was working on, as well as gain the experience that allowed me to make better technical solutions in future. I've been working for a company called Malcos. I believe it's core value right now, back in 2011. That was probably one of the few years that I spent in the office. Afterwards, I went back to a full remote work before it was even, mainstream, and they made movies about that. And somehow landed here in the US and joined LinkedIn. So at the beginning of my career, I was the software engineer, as we call it, the developer, the coder, or the person that managed the code and written the code. But over years, I've discovered that it's not just the way you write the code that makes the impact to the business. That's how the code is being run, because the whatever code you write, the business is going to need to run it elsewhere. So I switched to the DevOps / SRE career. It was a lot of interest for me there, and that's how I got to this SRE position at LinkedIn. So enough about me. Let's talk about you. I believe that all people that gathered here are proficient in writing extensible, maintainable, elegant, and efficient code. I hope so that you are. You are getting better every day. You are really great at what you're doing. You're sometimes even writing unit tests for the code that you write. You're also a good team player. You are able to communicate your ideas clearly, both in written and verbal form. You're an active listener, and you're attentive to what people are saying. You're generally good at what you're doing. People enjoy working with you, right? But does it make you a good engineer? Are these qualities enough? Maybe there's something else out there that we don't know, that we want to take grasp of it, to incorporate into our work life. And we'll cover that in color. But first, before we dive deeper how to become a better engineer, let's talk about what engineering is. What do we set as the North Star for our engineering effort through our lifetime or through our careers, right? So engineering is the process of implementing our fantasies, ideas, and hypotheses in real life. To do that, we invent, build, and adopt new technologies along the way. So first of all, any engineering idea starts with the thing that didn't exist before. We want to make something that is not out there in real world, to help people in the same world, to do either their job better or spend some time the way they like playing video games. That's still engineering, right? And if you think about it on the deeper levels, you would recognize that everything that anyone has ever built is actually the result of that imaginations, of that fantasies and ideas. And some person, or maybe we know him or her, or maybe we don't know them, they have this seed of the idea in their mind. They grew it to the point where they, okay, now I understand how things gonna work, and they start inventing it. They started using their own time, their own resources, their own abilities to build something for us that we're using it every day right now. And the thing is that these ideas on the very early stages are like larvas, like they are ugly. Most of the time, when you share that great engineering idea with somebody, uh, they will, it will just sound bad. It sounds great in your head, but once you speak it out loud, it sounds bad. And a lot of ideas, really great ideas, are being killed on that stage. Just yesterday, I read a wonderful article from Harper News on these ideas, and there were quite a lot of controversial thoughts in that article that I'm going to be kind of referring to in my further talk. So first, we need that idea to become the engineer, right? To start building the thing. So what was the wildest idea that ever came to you in terms of technology? Just think about it. And if you want, you can go ahead and share it in the chat, or just unmute yourself and say it out loud, and we'll hear. Don't be afraid. As I said, those ideas could be in larva stage and they will not look very pretty. But those would be probably something that you will be proud of eventually. And folks, I really want to ask you for some interaction, because otherwise it's going to be really a stand up.
Well, maybe you could repeat the question so our audience will
have time to think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll come to the answer when you're ready. So if you don't want to type it now, you can always type it later, and then we're gonna talk about that as well. So if we get to the very bottom of it, and I'm just gonna be skipping a couple levels, the good engineer must really imagine the better world that we're gonna be living in eventually. They really need to think about how the society, the government, the company, any structure that they are part of is being organized, and how it could be reorganized, how the processes can be changed to make sure that the life is going to become better, right? Do we actually do anything of the aforementioned? Do we dedicate our time? Do we dedicate our resources, our mind, to bringing those ideas, to writing those ideas down? Maybe we just have that idea and go for a walk, and on the walk that idea somehow leaves our head with the wind, and that's it. But if you ever say that, no, I don't have dedicated time for ideas, I don't have dedicated time to realize what I'm doing and how things could be better for any of us, it's very difficult to do something outside of the band, outside something wild, something that will not be put in the book as, well, this is a common practice. Okay? So thinking about those ideas are really, really important. And now, as you think about those ideas start reflecting from your, you can say, soul, or your mind. So when you see the vision of how world can be better, how people can work, more effectively, how businesses can make more money or lower their costs, Those ideas are somehow resonating with your soul. Is the work that you're doing actually resonating with what you're doing? It's resonating with what you're feeling. I'm sorry. Um, does it feel meaningful? Do you feel satisfied in the work? And then brings up to the point that it's important to work to become a great engineer. You know, it's important to work on things that are resonating with you. It's important to work on things that you have ideas and you have passion for it. I know sometimes it feels like, this is not the stand-up your Paul is doing. This is more of the, this corporate speech that somebody's giving, from the executive level. But I'm not the executive for now. And it always comes to the point that you can be happy and you can be effective as an engineer. You can be good in engineering only if you're passionate about it. Because if you're not, you can do your work, right? You can do it great, but it's not going to make you a better engineer in the way that you're not inventing anything. You're not bringing these new ideas to life. You're just having them and then sending them to the trash bin on your desktop and then recycling it every 30 days or whatever. So if you work on these ideas, if you try to evolve them into something that is meaningful, that is something that you touch, something that resonates with you, as I said before, you would be able to progress alongside with those ideas. Essentially, those ideas going to be pulling you up and going to be setting up the new challenge every day for you that you were not prepared to. I see somebody raise the hand.
Yeah, it's me. It's Kate. So, Paul, I have a question. What if the project has a clear requirements and I can't implement my ideas into life? Should I just leave it or switch the project or?
No. In this case, that's a very good question, Kate. First, and in this case, clear requirements is the latter stage of the idea production, right? So somebody had the idea to build something, and they flush that idea on paper and add the color to it, so that these requirements would be describing that idea. So if that idea doesn't resonate with you at this point of time, you can obviously kind of leave the project, and not become a better engineer on that particular project, or you can still learn new things and then incorporate whatever you learned, incorporate that knowledge into building your own ideas. And essentially, the requirements are not, in construction, the requirements are really, really, really important, right? Because if you don't have requirements in the construction, the house is going to fold on itself. But in software engineering, requirements are merely kind of boundaries that said, okay, this is what the problem space that we're going to be solving. This is how we're going to solve it. And the requirements are usually related to what? This is the functions that we want to cover in our software, and this is the latency that these functions have to have while solving that problems. And latency is like, yeah, this has to be done in this much time. But the requirements doesn't limit you on the tooling and the implementation of those ideas. Because, when we think about great ideas, we are, for some reason, putting them on the scale, on the grand scale of the universe, right? Those are great ideas. But no, great ideas could be small, little, tiny things. Those 2 lines of code that you pushed and met the you conformed with the requirements with these 2 lines of code was actually a better idea than pulling up a different module and building thousands of lines of code for that. That is a great idea as well. So requirements are actually could be used as inspiration for your ideas. It is more of the challenge that you take on to make sure that the idea is implemented in the way it has to be.
Okay, thank you. Pretty clear answer.
Yeah. I'm glad about that. So on the side of the good ideas, sometimes the ideas are bad, and sometimes ideas look great on paper, but those ideas could actually be bad and hurting the business. And I'm gonna do the intermezzo right now, and I'm gonna tell you a personal story. So about one of the customers that I work for. Um, so the company was doing recycling, right? Waste management, recycling thing. It was pretty big company back in the day, and they had this idea to become the OAuth 2 provider. So essentially, as you log into websites with Facebook or with Google, they thought, yeah, you would log in to the website on like the newspaper or something with your account from essentially trash provider that is working for the municipality. The idea sounded super challenging for me because it was back 2011 or maybe 2012. The OAuth 2 protocol was just in the draft form. There was not an even RFC, and we were already doing that. That was great, challenging. Was it a good idea in terms of business? Probably no. Well, the project was scraped, and after the release, after a couple of months of our code hit the production, they kind of figured it out that nobody wants to log into New York Times with their, as you can call it, trash account, right? So let's think about this bad idea. First, bad idea from the business perspective, from the terms of generating revenue or managing the costs for the business. Well, nothing to add there, right? But at the same time, it opened up the opportunity for me and a couple other super talented engineers that I had the luck to work with, the ability to build that OAuth server. And it was wonderful. We learned so many things. We got to understand how service intercommunicate between each other, how to do this identity checking, and how to make sure that you're going to propagate the identity from one server to the other. And that piece of that part of the idea kind of traveled with me through all the time. And I used it multiple times afterwards when I was having any issues in my career, because I knew that, hey, for any issue that I have a box of solutions that I made before. Maybe some of those solutions going to work there as well. So even a really bad idea can be turned in a good learning and a good knowledge. And my co-founder from Dental Space One has this wonderful phrase. He says that experience is something that we get instead of what we wanted. So even if you don't want to build this, even if you don't want to work on this particular project that it doesn't make sense, you're still going to get the experience. And this experience is going to prove valuable. All right. That's going to be the end of my intermezzo personal story. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, outsourcing work. I've been there for a little bit more than a year. Otherwise, I was working for the companies that were building their own products, and it always kind of bugs me that if there is even the outsourcing companies there, I was like, how come people are coming up with the business ideas, with the plans on launching some product, and they are hiring people from the other side of the planet, explain them what the idea is, and somehow it gets done. Somehow they infect other people with those ideas. Also, they pay a hefty amount of money to get those ideas implemented. But at the end of the day, they have to kind of enable people to follow their ideas. And the trick here is that if you're working in the outsourcing company, you have to be that easy infectable with the idea. You have to be open to the new things that are going to be passed on to you. You have to have passion for what you're doing, even if that's outsourcing company, because you will be able to do a lot of stuff and you would be able to get your visibility, to get your presentation, to get your impact out there. And that could potentially lead to way much more opportunities that you can imagine. You heard multiple stories that, hey, there was this guy on the outsourcing company or this girl in another company, and then we worked with her so well and we felt the vibe so well that we invited her over and moved her over to work for the company that is part of, because why does it happen? Because the person is actually infected with the idea. The person is passionate about what they are doing. The person is contributing more thought than just work to the idea. And that brings us to the companies that build their products, right? So imagine that we are right now in the setup of large multinational company that builds their product. Let's not call it, but let's make the product is very specific phone, okay? But we're not going to be calling the company. What potential ideas can be coming out of that? How do you know how to develop something new? How will you know how will this phone will be used, a year from now? You don't. That's why you need to have a cesspool of ideas, a melting pot, something that will allow people to exchange their thoughts and build those ideas in the middle. So that's how this company kind of operates right now. If you take one person or like 10 people, and those 10 people going to be imagining their wildest dreams about what the phone can do, right? They will be out of ideas in probably like a couple of years, okay? Those ideas going to get implemented. Those ideas going to be implemented on the phone, but that's that. If you have passion and if you have this, correct mindset, if you have this people around you that are thinking alike or thinking different but in the same direction, you can bring that idea generation machine to get rolling, and it will be rolling for a long time, as you see with the Apple company. But it's very difficult to achieve that on a grand scale of thousands of employees or tens of thousands of employees, because you're going to get siloed. Some people are going to know what they are working on, and they're not going to know what other people are working on. And there's going to be no communication within that company. As we reach to the product stage, it is mature. It is the company is huge, and there is like an HR department there, right? So on the other hand, let's think about the small garage startup that doesn't have AC in their garage and is suffering from heat, but there are 4 people coming there. They have very good vision about the new product that they're gonna launch. They have a very good idea of what needs to be done, and they have no resources. They essentially have to scrap everything together out of nothing to get that idea out of the door, to get the product out of the door. And this changes their mindset even more. So now they just don't have the resources to build that. They have to invent something. They have to change the way people are approaching the problems and do that much more. So in the competitive, Oksana, I see your hand raised, or Kate, I don't know which one of you is raising hand. The Zoom doesn't show it, just one hand there. Yeah, I'm going to finish that thought after the question. Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I have a question, a lot of questions. It's really resonate to my experience that I have, even though I'm not from the engineering background. And I believe that many people are thinking in the format of their backlog and daily tasks? And do you have any techniques how to find these new ideas and how to find things that can be improved? Because I believe that for many people, it's like a challenge to start thinking out of their backlog and out of their daily tasks.
Yeah, it is. There are multiple ways of finding those ideas. There are multiple ways how you can uncover things that are actually right below the surface. The most obvious thing is talk to people in the wild, right? Go and talk to your customer, figure out their pains, understand what they are trying to achieve with your solution, understand what their problems are they are solving with their business, what their customers want, because everybody has a customer, right? So there are multiple things that you can do on that front. On the other front is that you really need to start asking that question yourself. You know, whether you're on the walk or you know with friends, just think about that particular problem that you have at hand and how you can solve it better, because it always starts small. You know, most people don't have this grand idea of app store. Well, most of the people do now, but you know, Steve Jobs back in the day didn't have this grand idea of the app store, you know, just from his preschool or from his elementary school. He was gaining experience, he was getting the small ideas and putting them together to get to the point where he can build that grand idea. So let's take that to the example, right? This is going to be unplanned intermezzo. Dental Space One. I'm the co-founder here. I didn't plan to talk about it on this conversation, but that's going to be a great example of how to get ideas. First, you understand that there is opportunity to make people's work, life, whatever, entertainment better, right? As you see that opportunity, you try to think, okay, I see that there's a lot of small things that can be done better. Like, I'm going to be just talking about the particular case, so I'm not going to be sparing the details, and I'm sorry about that. People are getting their teeth fixed, right? We cannot kind of go to the store and pick up the tooth from the store and put it into somebody's mouth, right? It doesn't work like that. So we have to produce it. And in order to produce it, we have to put it through a definitive list of processes that will follow one by one or sometimes by parallel. At the end, they would be quality tested and then put in person's mouth, because, well, this is processes, right? It's a serious thing. So as I talk to the people out there that own the dental laboratories that are doing this production, I figure that they don't have a clue about their processes. They don't understand how these things are organized. They are just doing it as they kind of figure it out intuitively. They don't have anything to guide them through the path. They don't have anything to onboard their employees to the path, because the path is not paved, right? So that's like that's the direction where you're going to go, but you're going to figure it out along the way where you have to turn. There's no path there. So this is one of the things. And the other thing could be, you know, those great ideas coming from the gas stations. When you put gas in your car, and you, instead of scrolling the phone, look around you and think how the world could be a better place. Maybe, you know, somebody had the idea, yeah, we don't need people getting out of the car on the gas station. We're just gonna have a gas attendant there to put the gas in their car. That was a good idea at some point of time, right? But then, you know, the capitalism and the social movements kind of killed that profession. Or also there would be elevator operators for the same thing. But somebody had the idea, like, let's make it that simple so that we didn't have the elevator operator in the hotel. So these things are around you, and the mindset that you have to build it out in your head to be open to that ideas is something that we are trying to cover in this thing. So as you probably guessed it, the first thing is going to be the passion. You need to be passionate about the problem to be able to absorb the ideas in that problem space. Second is the environment. You have to put yourself in the environment where those ideas are heavily discussed, people are thinking about it, and you can talk to other folks in the terms of how you're gonna interact that, how you're gonna move the idea forward, how you're gonna make this solution better. Okay, and there's more. I've seen some emojis on the gallery. Do you have any more questions?
Yeah, we do. Actually, thank you for the answer. We do have questions from Vasily. Do you see the chat, or should I?
Yeah, you can go ahead and read it, and you know maybe the
Yeah.
next time Vasily's gonna, after you read it, Vasily's gonna ask the question himself.
Yeah. What if you have some great ideas, but you've so overloaded at work that there's just no chance you'll have time to implement them?
Well, that's a good question, Vasily. So sometimes we do overload ourselves with work, and that's when our mind works at its peak performance, as you could say, and that's where the ideas come to us. If you don't have time to work on the idea, you have to make time. There's nothing else. Just like with anything, you if you really believe and you really see that idea as something that of value to you or anyone in the society, you have to make time to do this. So, and there are multiple ways you can do it. Obviously, somebody's going to say, cut on your sleep. Don't sleep extra 2 hours, you're going to have 2 hours to work on your ideas. But I don't like that approach. Sometimes it's just about managing the expectations, right? If you set the right expectations to people you're working on that are overloading you with the project, saying, hey, you know what, I'm spending way too much time on this because the ask is way much more than the pay, or the ask is way much more complex than you initially thought. So let's kind of tolerate that. Let's tailor it to the point where um, it would be manageable. At that point, if you set these expectations correct, you can carve yourself a little bit of time and a little bit of free cycles in your head where you could work on that idea. When I was founding Dental Space One, I thought that, well, at some point I'm gonna have to leave my 9-to-5 job and become this entrepreneur myself. And I figured that, well, I don't need to. I can balance those things together. I can find time to do both, and also having 2 kids and also having active life, and even having time to talk with you. So it's everything about balancing it out. And I thought that, in my 20s, I thought that, well, I have all the time in my life. After I had kids, I thought like I had none of time in my life. I own nothing. I cannot even sleep for 2 hours straight if I want, because somebody can show up and say, Daddy, wake up. But as you have these things figured out along the way, you can carve that time to do the meaningful work on your ideas. And also your ideas don't come with deadlines. You don't have to be pushing too hard on them. If you see that you're exhausted, you can say, okay, I don't have the correct mindset right now to work on this. My head is on something else. I'm thinking about, some things that are happening on the other side of the planet, and I cannot work on this idea. And that's okay. You have to be empathetic to yourself in this case. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you have to be empathetic to the point that I'm not going to be working on this for weeks. You have to balance things out. All right. I think I responded to Wasil's question. Okay. Let's move on. So the closing thought for this environments, right? We have the startup in the garage, and we have a big company somewhere here. And both of people are super smart. Both of people are working in these different companies are super smart, but they are having different challenges in their life, right? So the big company has to build the product no matter the cost. Well, the cost is going to be the matter later, but to get it out in the wild so that people start using it, and then they're going to reconcile the cost. They see how much they can, anticipate the revenue on that, how much it's going to cost, what's going to be the profit. And if you take any of the newly founded companies, and by newly founded, I mean like 20 years ago, they are still figuring it out. Only a few that are public companies have already figured it out, but most of them didn't. So on the other hand, the startup in the garage, they have different set of problems. They are working on how to make the product with literally no resources, with something that they have no, they cannot order, the parts that are going to be sent to them from China on the plane, and they're going to build it out. They have to scrape it. And this is the environment where these new ideas going to be generated much more easily than the first one. So if you really want to get your mindset in that idea generation position, please plan your career in the way that at some point you're going to be one of those folks in the garage that would be thinking scrappy, that would be bringing wild ideas, because you don't have anything else. That's everything that they have in their sleeve to make sure that they can progress. Only those ideas. And as you as the recent interview with Zuckerberg was, Facebook is more, well, Meta is more afraid right now of the company that is currently formed in the garage than from any other competition out there. Either Twitter or whatever else social network there is. They don't care about those. They're caring about the company that is not even on the radar yet, because this is how things going to change. So what's the big difference in this? The first company, the big corporation, launches a new version of their operating system, changing the way the icons look, doing some iterative improvements on their product, while the company in the garage has to shift mountains, has to boil the sea with little to no resources to make sure that they're going to make a dent there. They're going to get out of that garage at some point. And the worst thing is, not the worst, like probably the funniest thing to me is that this big company started in that small garage sometime, and they possessed the spirit, they possessed the grit, they possessed the agility, they possessed the ability to think outside of the box to get, out from that garage. But as they evolved, they were changing their nature, and they were changing their perception. So let's sum up the environment, right? We are almost at time. Let's sum up the environment. If you have passion, you have to experience different environments with that passion and find out the environment that's going to be helping you, that's going to be, not enforcing you, but inspiring you probably to be creative, get you to the point where you will be, well, I'm gonna have every day a new idea. That's gonna be great if you experience that. And you have to kind of consciously build up your career in the way that you're going to get that experience, that you're going to get that feeling that this is kind of how I'm changing. Because if you don't do that, you're going to be just going with the flow. Sometimes the flow would take different different ways and not the most productive ones. You have to be conscious about what you're working on, how you're working on it, and what can you gain out of that work beyond the paycheck. So I'm going to skip the intermezzo too that I had planned for this conversation. I'm not going to be talking about the maker's culture. Let's move to the technology, right? Let's make it very comfortable and very easy conversation from now on. Okay, Oksana, go ahead.
Yeah, nice to meet. So, Paula, what if I don't have possibility to work, like option to work in garage? I work for a big company, and so it's not like my experience, but for example, I work for a big company and the processes are really very good. How can I shift my mind? How can I think that I work from garage?
Well, there is no trick. You cannot be working from the garage without working in the garage. Okay, but you can make your office look like the garage, but it's not going to help anyway. In big companies, there's usually this initiatives where there is a super secret project that is being usually led by the C executive. And that's going to be a next big thing. This, some people call it incubator within the company. Some people call it a startup within a big corporation, or some project that they think is going to change the world, the way you're going to work. And try to join that project. You have to put yourself out there to get that experience. And it's very difficult to somehow, convince yourself that, well, I'm going to be working on the same position as I am right now, and I'm going to get that experience that I need. You have to find the position where you're going to get the experience you need. But the worst thing is, and probably the main message of my today's communication relay is that we don't consciously think about it. We don't think about the experience that we want to get. We don't think about where we're going to be in 2 years from now, not in terms of the company progression or the career progression within the company, but in terms of what knowledge do we want to have, what ideas do we want to share with other people, what thoughts and what's the thought process has to be in our minds so that we would be moving forward to become a better engineer. All right, talked Oksana to board, but yeah, that's the answer. And let's talk about the technology, right? That's the most boring part of being the good engineer. What about technology? For engineering, technology is just a tool set that they're going to use or they're going to invent in order to build something better. So you could say that the good engineer is as good as his or her technological stack, but that's not true. I've seen people working on Bash scripts and doing amazing things compared to people that were using Java and vice versa. So I would rephrase in the way that your technology has to be comfortable for you. Let's go even further in the analogies and say, not the sharpest samurai sword wins, but the one that naturally fits in your hand. If you have this wild idea and there is a piece of technology that you have experience with, just use that piece of technology to implement that idea. You're going to learn along the way that, hey, maybe this piece of technology is actually not fit for that idea. You will be able to change it later. But it's really, really, really important to not be diluted attention from the idea and try to build the thing that you wanted to build with the tools that you have in hand, instead of going 20 years journey to build the correct tools for that idea. We don't have bajillions in our bank accounts. Well, maybe somebody has, but I don't know why they would be joining this meeting then, to do such hefty investments. We just don't. And this is I'm going to tell in the intermezzo. This is going to be LinkedIn stories. So LinkedIn is generally famous for building tools for themselves instead of buying. So they built their own Grafana, they built their own Prometheus, they built their own Docker. And when they did that? Almost a decade ago, before even Docker or Grafana or anything like that was in the wild. So as soon as the C groups were merged into the kernel and the LXC containers technology was just showing up on the horizon, they were already building things. And that was great. That was the best point to join this innovative team that built something new in the company that Oksana was asking about, couple minutes ago. But the problem now is that they are stuck with that technology. They don't have the community support. As you can imagine, the documentation is not much better than the documentation for any other internal tool that you've built yourself, right? And now there is some, multiplier of effort coming from the community, from different companies, to develop the Kubernetes, to develop the Docker, to the same technological stack that they were building on, but just with different tools. And they either build the parallel universe, or they have to switch tools. That was a very difficult conversation that we had within the company. How are we going to adapt to that? How are we going to change the technology? But even on the LinkedIn scale, it was possible. So now we are having Kubernetes clusters, and we are running the same Docker payloads that you run probably in your own clusters, using the same open source technology there. So the thing is, you build the technology just for the tools of implementing your idea, just to make sure that you have the fork and the knife to finish your dinner. And it's okay for technological choices to be changing over time. They are part of our invention. They are part of some of your journey. As you're driving, through the whole entire world, right? Imagine you're going to be driving from Lisbon to China. You're going to be changing, engine oil. You're going to be changing wheels. You're going to be maybe even changing the car on your journey. And that's okay. That's just part of the experience. So as a technologist, as an engineer, you just need to make sure that the car is well oiled and actually can drive 60 kilometers per hour, or what's the speed limit there. And that's it. You don't have to be passionate about the technology to be a good engineer. I see another question from the chat, but I don't see it all.
Yeah, we do have two comments from Alex Bondarenko and Maxim. And also we have a question from Wasil. Once again.
Do you want us to read all of them right now or after your speech?
Yeah, let's read them right now. And because I only have the conclusion left, so let's interact with.
So Alex Bondarenko says that engineering is applying scientific methods for practical tasks for getting the best results using the resources that you have.
This is exactly true. Alex, this is one of the best summaries of the meetings that I ever read.
Also, Maxim said that main idea that having communities is critical because they often an important source of social connection and a sense of belonging. Working in team will help you to watch into problems from different perspectives and generating a volume amount of ideas. This will help you become a better engineer.
Absolutely, Maxim. Absolutely, you're right. And I referred to the article that I read yesterday. So there was this case, of open offices, right? Back in 2000s, probably, as we were kind of going out of the cubicles and going into this open office environment, founders were thinking, okay, we're gonna put people out, we're gonna raise the walls between them, they're gonna communicate, we're gonna get, interactions, we're gonna get these good ideas that we're gonna implement. What actually happened is that people went out, they started communicating, they started filtering out bad ideas really fast and really well. Because if you communicate in such vast space of different points, bad ideas are easy to weed out. But at the same time, the great ideas were buried with these bad ideas as well. Because when you put yourself out there you stand up in the middle of open space and start saying, hey, we're doing this wrong, we have to do it differently. Most people will have problems putting themselves in that position, because they might feel offended, and nobody wants to be the kid that is being taken the last from school, right? If you understand my analogy. So having a good idea is having courage, and it's having the environment, that community around yourself, that you will not be ashamed of putting yourself in front of. If you put yourself in front of the community, and you can sustain their critics or whatever they are about to say to you, you're in the right community. If you don't feel comfortable in that position, well, that's probably not your part. So this kind of a litmus test on how you can know how you can know if the community is productive part of your thought process or not. And another thing is, from my experience, is the best and most productive communities are not that big. Usually they are 4 or 5 people that have really good personal relationship within work. I'm not saying that they have to interact outside of work, but they have really good professional relationships, and they are comfortable bringing those wildest ideas to the community, and not afraid to get solid and very have solid and very direct responses to their ideas.
Thank you, Paul. Personally, me, I wrote a lot of quotes after your speech that I need to rethink once again. And we do also have question from Vasily, who asks, do you spend time on side projects over your main job? Do you feel like that's the best way to progress?
Yes and no. The best way to progress is that I would win a lottery and work only the projects that I want to work. But that's wishful thinking. The best way to progress is the best way for me, and this is very personal, right? It's going to be very different for you. So if I started Dental Space One as one of these kind of side projects, I still hold a 9-to-5 job at LinkedIn, and when I was starting this project, I felt that I cannot not start it. I cannot stop myself from starting it. I was that passionate with that idea. I was that passionate with the opportunity there, that I didn't even have that feeling that, hey, something's holding back. There's nothing holding me back. I cannot make myself not do that. And this is probably the pinnacle of the motivation. I don't imagine how people can be more motivated than that, when it's not the question whether they can start or not. It's like they cannot not start. And Vasil, it's really important to entertain yourself with the idea, to be able to dream, to become the fantasy, because only then you would be able to truly feel and truly understand the potential of your invention or your technology or whatever you're doing. And only after, many sessions of this fantasizing and dreaming, you're going to get that passion. And at some point, I believe that you will get the idea where you will, okay, I cannot not do this idea. I must do it. This is when you start.
Thank you.
All right, folks. We are past time. I'm gonna wrap it up a little bit. I'm gonna be able to take more questions only if you follow my wife's Instagram account. That's gonna be the main channel to ask questions from now on. Okay, so what makes a good engineer, right? Paul, you were talking for more than an hour, but let's sum it up. I think that there are 4 parts of being good engineers, and there are 2 more parts that are kind of achievable. So 4 of them are the things that you can work on right now, right away, and there are 2 more that you can develop in yourself over time. So the main 4 parts is the communication and the environment, passion and people. You have to align those 4 things: communication, environment, passion, and people. You have to form something out of these 4 that's gonna make you open. That's gonna make your mind open to new things. The other 2 is the ability to learn quickly and effectively. You don't need to learn everything about the thing. You just need to understand what you need, get done, and move on. You don't need to be expert in all the fields and technologies. You just need to know what you need to know. Ability to learn is the key to that. And technological fundamentals. These technological fundamentals, I believe every of you already possess. So 4 main things plus 2 additional things gonna get you to the point where you will be able to generate and implement new ideas in a very favorable conditions. And once you get there, don't forget to create a safe, favorable condition for your peers, for people you're working with, because that point when you see other people growing, other people implementing their own ideas, other people getting out there and doing what they want to do, it's going to be a lot of interest being paid to you in terms of emotions, happiness, and as well as monetary investment as well. And along the way, as you're progressing, be kind, because being kind is probably the smartest thing you can do. Kind people are smart people, I would say, from my experience. James, I see you raised the hand. Please go ahead.
Hello, James here from Dallas, Texas. I have a question. Where do y'all have like a Discord? Because what I've talking about, like creating or being in an environment of like other people, finding that people and then learning. I've tried to find it, but they wouldn't be as active, with like Discords or like any group meetings. And so I was like kind of like forced to create my own environment and then invite people to come to mine and just like work on software. But like, do you have any groups where we could link with other people and share ideas and the concepts that you talked about today?
Well, James, I'm sorry, I don't have any groups. I
Mhm.
have inspiration from the personal circle that I'm in right now, and I talk to the people around myself. We don't have it. We have a Telegram channel when there are like 10 people there,
Mhm.
and they all know each other.
Uh,
But what I can say is that there is a big community on Twitter of indie makers, and those people are usually really great at implementing their ideas. Some of their ideas are great, some of them are not that great, but there is a big community out there, and there are a lot of people joining that community that try to build something either themselves or as a small company. And you can participate there in that community. It's kind of on Twitter, so it's public. And you can also invite them as guests, for your conversations in your environment. I don't know. I'm gonna send you the links. Somehow let's pass on the emails, and I'm gonna send you the links of who specifically I'm talking about.
okay. Thank you.
So guys, I encourage you to ask question in loud, but let's start with the chat. If you want to ask question aloud, just raise your hand and we will transfer the word to you. So we do have questions from Alex Bondarenko, how to grow. Oh, no, from Oksana. Is it possible to recognize in the interview whether the developer has a good garish vision? If yes, how?
Oh, that's a tough one, Oksana. Yes, it is possible, but you're gonna need years of experience to be able to recognize the candidate in the first 5 seconds of the interview. But it is possible. Well, let's think about it a bit wider. Okay, we have a dedicated time, say 45 minutes, that we spend with the person in the same room or in the same Zoom, and we want to figure out whether they're going to be a good match for the company.
Mhm.
I'm going to set aside the cultural, personal characteristics or anything like that. This is like the HR business. I'm going to be just talking about this engineering mindset that you want to figure out within this 45 minutes. On the interview, you need to establish two things. First, where is the border of the person's knowledge in any area? So say you're talking about, I don't know, Python programming. You need to get to the point where the person say, this is where my knowledge ends. This is kind of their borderline. And the next thing is you need to figure out how they act beyond that border. When I do my interviews, on the Dental Space One just hired first engineer yesterday. So when I was making the hiring decision, I essentially was focusing on the second part of my previous sentence. Where do we how people act when they are beyond the border of their knowledge? And this is where you can figure out whether people has this garage mindset. When they don't know things, and they need to come up with something, they need to boil the ocean to make it happen. And you pick their thoughts. You see how they react. It's not just that their thoughts have to be clear and thing. It's just how they are progressed. Some people are just stuck there. Some people are just, I don't know, and I don't know what to do. What you're asking me, I don't know. I have no idea. And I said, yeah, but let's imagine. Let's think about it. Like, I cannot imagine. I'm on the interview. I'm worried, right? That's how you know that the person doesn't have this, as you say, garage vision. That's very very nice thing. I love it. Gonna use it today.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Let's
agree.
go.
More like lottery, so you can find it, or maybe you just didn't have much time to uncover this in this person?
Yeah, absolutely. And also you have to make people comfortable on that interviews, um, so that again, I'm conducting these interviews, saying, it's perfectly okay to say I don't know. This is when it becomes interesting, because if we're talking and I'm asking questions and people are giving answers, it's all we're getting to the border.
That's true.
But it doesn't matter. Your border can be expanded as much as you want over time, right? It doesn't matter how you expand it.
Okay, the next question from Alex Bondarenko: how to grow an opinion focused on growing team from a regular one? Should
I'm
they
not sure. I'm not sure that I fully understand the question, but I'm still gonna try. Alex, if you have your mic on the device you're joining on, please unmute yourself and expand a little bit on the question. Otherwise, I'm just gonna take it like one of the this lottery questions.
I'm interested if it's possible to change a regular team to a team that support your growing, support each other to come with new ideas, because generally all teams good enough, but not the best. And how to make this regular team good enough, better in this area of growing, coming with new ideas, changing something?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you very much, Alex. Yes, it is possible to make the team, essentially transform the team from being a regular one to be focused on growing. But to change the team, you need to change the players, and I'm not mean substitute them, but you need to work with each person on the team and sell them their values, sell them the culture, sell them the ideas. Hey, we could be supportive. We want to help each other. We want to grow together. Do you want to be part of that team? I bet that most people are going to say yes, because they do want that in their lives. They just don't have the grit to go ahead and do it themselves, but they will definitely support the cause. And in order to do that, after selling, you have to establish that culture. You have to establish culture that say, hey, we have the requirements that are being pulled down on us, from the C-level executives or our customers, right? Let's think how we can do better. Let's think if we can meet those requirements, or we can do the same thing but with lower latency, or make this thing even more performant, or make this thing 3 clicks less. In this case, the team is going to be a huge supporter. Again, a little personal note from my career. When I joined LinkedIn, I joined the ultimate best team I ever been part of. All the people that worked in that team shared common values, and we were super organized. We were responsible for the CDN setup at LinkedIn. This is something I can talk about. So essentially, any image or any style sheet or any JavaScript that would land to your browser from LinkedIn would be going through our CDN infrastructure. And as being part of that team, I learned a lot. I learned so many things, how people could be working together, what's the framework for them to work together, how to make them gather around the same goal, but at the same time, how allow them to work independently. So the team was great because we had the guy that was great at documentation. He's Canadian. He's writing excellent documentation. I don't know. Sometimes I read his docs and I'm like, even hear his accent. He was so good, right? The other one was really great at doing, meetings, and he always knew how to, sell the ideas to managers up, above him, below him, get people on board. He was a great communicator, but he was verbal. He couldn't write much. The other guy was a great technical engineer. He had wonderful ideas how things should be, but he didn't know, Golang that much. He just had the ideas. He started working on that, and then I looked at his Golang code and said, "Hey, dude, this is wonderful, but why do you do this so complex? Let's simplify it together." So, if you have this wish to make your team, transform your team to become a better and focused, you have to express it so that they will know they are part of your plan, and they have to agree to your plan. So you have essentially sell that plan to them. And once that is done, you will figure out your strong sides and the weak sides. And if you balance them out together, that team's going to be unstoppable.
Oh, thank you. Because I heard many stories when a person come to a great team, but I've never heard any story when someone create a great team from scratch. Each time in each conference, it's about, I come to a great team, everybody was doing the best, and I started to do my best. But I've never heard the story of beginning.
Well, I have the story of converting the team. A couple employments before that, I was participating in the team, and it's a really tough thing to do. Most people that do that, they don't end up being speakers on the conferences. But once you do that, your career is gonna skyrocket. If you are able to transform the mediocre team to the superstar team in IT, this is one of the rare achievements. 0.1% of players achieve that on the Xbox or something like that. It's not very easy to do, but it's a challenge that is definitely worth it.
Thank you. And another question from Vasil. He is quite active today. Could you tell us one of your latest ideas that you implemented at your current role, and how did you make it happen?
Well, the thing is, at LinkedIn, we have this initiative to measure availability of our internal services that are essentially the infrastructure from production facing services. Imagine you have some part of LinkedIn that's part of LinkedIn application, and then it's making some calls to internal services to do some infrastructure change and deploy something there. I don't think I can go in any further details. Infrastructure changes is like, I want to create a new database, right? And this is done from the call or things like that. And we had the gap that we didn't have the visibility into how we can measure the availability of our internal infrastructure services, although we had a very clear SLAs to the availability of our external services. And that boils down to the problem that, hey, we have to have the service with 4 nines of availability, right? So we are 2 hours per year, we can go down on that service. But we're building that service on the infrastructure that has only 3 nines of the availability. So How can we do that? Well, obviously there is no way, but the problem was even deeper because we didn't know the numbers for our internal services. I started that by answering the question, and then I forgot the question. So my idea was with regards to measuring the availability. How we're going to be measuring the availability of the downstream services if we don't have the the unified client, say the browser or the LinkedIn app, querying them? Because it kind of comes to the nature of the availability measurement. Because say, imagine this: you are using the website, your favorite store that sells you your shoes, right? And they have broken search on their website. So if you go on the catalog, you can find the shoes, you can find whatever you want, but the search is broken. What's the availability of the search? How do you know? Nobody knows, because it's going to be affected only the people that are searching. It's not going to affect you as you're browsing the catalog, right? So the same thing converts to the point there. There's internal service, but you don't know who is using it and who is making the calls, so you will not know who's going to complain about the service being not available. So at that point, I said that, okay, we're going to invert that idea, and we're going to start, we're going to invert the idea of measuring the abducts or availability from the client perspective, and we're going to measure it on the server. Yeah, we're going to have the problems of network latencies and all of that taken out of the picture, because if there is a network connection denied or there is no route to our application, the client is not going to be able to reach it, and then the availability is going to drop. But for every request that we're getting on the server, we're going to be measuring, the availability of that request, whether the request is being served in the timely fashion and whether the request is being served correctly. So that was the idea that was kind of out there in the wild. I don't think that I was the first one to get this idea in the world, but it helped me to communicate with people in the company that were relevant to where at least I could explain this problem to them and they would understand me within less than 5 minutes. And in that communication, I got that idea on the management. That was one of the good ones, as you asked recently, that I can share off. There were a couple more good ones, but I cannot share those as well. Oh, by the way, there's another benefit of working in the larger company is you can actually talk to your coworkers. Can you imagine that? Talking to your coworkers blew my mind at some point. So when you're facing the problem and it is absolutely new for you and nobody knows what's in there, you can just go to the random department that is doing absolutely different thing, stand there and ask about the problem out loud, and maybe there's a good chance there's going to be a person that's going to stand up and say, yeah, I did that 5 years ago when I was working in a different part of the same company or a different company. And you have to use that as a big company. All right. I think we are out of questions, out of time, and I'm out of tea. Wrap it up, girls.
Well, thank you so much for your speech, for your time. As always, it was a pleasure to see you, to hear you. Thank you all, guys, that you join us and you spend time with us. I hope to see you on our next webinars.
Yeah, thank you, guys. I just dropped a message in the Zoom chat, so please let us know if you enjoy the webinar or not. There's some smiles that you can just emoji that you can put, so we can understand if you enjoyed it or not. But also we will send the recording, so probably you'll get you can rewatch and get and rethink about thesis that Paul highlighted today once again. And also there will be a feedback form that you can fill in and let us know how we can improve our next webinars. What is the Instagram?
Where do we connect on socials? So people just want to make connections.
Yeah, do you want to make connections with Paul? Oh, there's LinkedIn.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So Andrew, you're really interested in the Instagram of my wife. Okay, I'm gonna. But make sure you sign up. Make sure you follow or whatever you.
She changed her hair color, and she looks really red.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool. But also we will share the socials and Instagram of Sigma Software. So you can also subscribe to us and not to miss our next webinars. Our next event will be in the beginning of September. So yeah, let's stay tuned. Thank you, Paul, once again. Thank you, audience, for coming.